Welcome to the Love Government. I'm Dennis Leary, the inventor of the Love Government. We're doing a series of videos on sex signs. In the first video, I described in general terms as a lead-up to where we're going, where we came from, and why we're doing it. In this second episode, I want to build on that first one and continue the description of the love culture. The love culture is very important because it describes and it provides the setting for who we are as persons. I said earlier that we are lovers. We're designed as lovers. That means that we relate to each other in a loving way, and part of that loving process is our sexuality. I want to continue to describe this beautiful scene where we were born and raised as a species. And it just so happens, you can't see it, but we're filming in a greenhouse, which is in the middle of a natural setting. It's very nice for me because it reminds me, when I look outside this greenhouse, of what I'm talking about, the Garden of Eden. Now some people think, oh, that's just a myth. It didn't really happen that way. I don't think so. Otherwise, why do all the old traditions and cultures speak about a golden age? Like the pagans spoke of a golden age or Elysium. Or the Bible speaks about the Garden of Eden. No, there was such a place. It's reasonable to assume that because if it wasn't that way, we would not have survived. Look at us. We're vulnerable. We don't have fur. We're not great fighters like the animals are. We would not have survived had we not have had certain qualities about us that protected us. And what I'm saying is that we lived in a love culture. That was a very high, fine vibration that protected us and made us thrive and made everything around us beautiful and safe and secure. It was well founded. It was well governed. Now the problem is for us that we're in the midst not of a love culture at all, the opposite. We're in the midst of a power culture, which means power over. We're being powered over all the time, manipulated, bombarded with messages about what we are supposed to do to please the culture and the masters of this culture. A big word that I'll be using a lot in the Love Government presentations is patriarchy. Patriarchy is a big word. It means rule by men. And if you look around our culture, it's not too hard to see that. But more about that later. In the love culture, we were safe, we were protected, and we lived a different type of lifestyle than we do today. So let me try to describe that as well as I can. Okay, we were embedded in nature. The animals were around us. We interacted with the animals. They were free. We didn't kill them. We didn't make them pets. We let them be the way they were. They were curious about us. We were curious about them. But we each had our own important lifestyle and roles to play. We interacted, but we didn't enslave each other. We didn't exert power over them or trick them, and so on and so forth. The animals were like us because we are animals. We are animals ourselves, except that we have an overlay of rationality, and we have an overlay, really, not so much of rationality, but of loverality or loveality. Because, as I said in the first episode, the big change, particularly for the woman, was her sexuality. The animals have sex only at prescribed times when the female goes into heat and she has what is called estrus. That's the only time. that the animals have sex. But when we appeared, big change. We can have sex all the time. There's no restrictions, no time factor restrictions. That's a big change. Now, why did that change occur? Because, as I said, we were created to be lovers. This increases our ability to love. Also, the women of that time menstruated differently than the animals. Once a month, in tune with the moon, and embedded in nature, the women of the culture menstruated. Now notice I'm going to stop. I'm going to just kind of hesitate here, pause, put your mind on pause here for just a second. You'll hear me speak about women and women, woman and woman. I'm distinguishing. There's a reason for that, which I won't go into detail here, but there's a reason. A woman was the female person of the love culture. Today we have very few of those individuals left anymore in an anti-love culture, unfortunately. So that's why I refer to make a difference. A woman has the word man in the word. So most of the women today have taken on, and it's no fault of their own for the most part, the characteristics of an anti-love culture. They've taken on patriarchal values. And so therefore, when in my mind, I make a difference between a woman who was in the love culture. She had entirely different way of looking at things, entirely different values, and her mind was different. Her body was very different than what we have today, because we have woman today, which is over many thousands of years have been conditioned and forced and subjugated and tricked and manipulated into having male values put upon them. So you say woman, you say whoa, 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 whoa. There's a man there. Looks like a woman, but if you dig deep in there, is there a real woman there, or is there? So I suppose I'm going to get dinged here for bringing such a subject up, but I think it's necessary. As the poet says, one of my favorite poets, is she a man or a woman? I can't tell which. From one to the other, she can so easily switch. Of course, he gave the game away right up in the front by calling she and her. But just a little point there. Sometimes it's not all about gender. You look and you see somebody, and it's a male body, but if you get to know the person, you find out there's a lot of feminine qualities in there. Same thing with looking at a woman. Looks like a woman, but there may be a lot of male qualities. So it's not, in the love culture, the genders were not so, cast in concrete as they are today. We are from birth, we are conditioned to be a man, be a real man. Don't cry, because you're a real man. Especially if you're higher up on the pyramid and you have to go into that big bad world out there and be a businessman or a military leader or a big banker. You don't want your kids to be, you don't want your boys to be feminine. You want them to be real men. And the same with the other sex. So that was a pause. You can hit the pause button again. We're going to go on from here. So the love culture, the people there was more of a blending of the sexes. There wasn't this extremism. The man bulks up and becomes a he-man, macho man, superman, and the woman becomes obedient, submissive. That all comes under patriarchy, that whole thing. But what we have today is not what we had then. Now, some people will argue that what I'm telling you is nothing but a fictional fairy tale. It never happened. Never happened. And they say, no, it was always the way it is now. There was always the fear of somebody coming through the woods with a spear or some little army coming over the hill with their spears and their bows and arrows. There was always that fear, or always a wild animal is going to grab you and eat you up. That is a big lie. So in the anti-love culture, we're told lie over lie over lie all the time. The big lie is told over and over. No, that wasn't true. There was a time, period, when we were protected by love, and we lived a relatively fearless life. We were happy, we were joyful. We didn't have to fear. There were no monies, no armies, none of that stuff that goes with what we have to put up with today. So I just want to make that point, that what I'm telling you about the love culture is based on solid evidence. It is a myth, because myths were the way that truth was conveyed in the old days. Stories were told, myths, but they had a deep element of truth in them. And today we think we're so rational, and we're so truthful, and we're so honest, and we got the real goods. But we're being lied to all the time. And a big example of that today, now I know I'm interrupting the story, but don't worry, we got lots of time. Take your time. The big lie today, the biggest lie of our time is 9/11. Just about everybody believes that job was pulled off by 19 Arabs with cell phones and box cutters. And it's not true. All the evidence that I've been able to read show that it was an inside job by our own elites for political, military purposes. And the main purpose behind it all is to scare us, to scare you, to scare me. It's called the War on Terror, which is really a war of terror. Now, why I'm insisting on this point, it seems like off the subject, but it's not really. Because patriarchy, that big word I used, runs on war, runs on terror. It has to terrorize the people on the bottom of the pyramid. Now, making a pyramid here. This is called the phallic pyramid. This is called the male pyramid, with the point pointing up towards heaven, or the top of the money hill. This particular model of reality is called patriarchy. But I'm emphasizing it because when we go on our journey towards love, which we're going to, we have to be smart. You have to know the dark side. You don't want to go into it and get trapped there, but you have to know the dark side, because the dark side is after you and your money and your life. They're out to get you. That's not paranoia. That's the truth if you look around. But we don't want to see the truth, most of us, because we're so conditioned, we don't want to see the truth. But the love government, for one reason or another, the main reason is because we're plugged in to the love culture. We got a link back there, and we can download that right up to the present anytime we want to. And it's free. We're doing it right now. We're filming this in a beautiful nature scene, and I got one eye on the camera, and I got one eye on the love culture, because I'm linked back there. And it's downloading here, downloading. They're all with us. They didn't go anywhere. They're still here. All of our loving ancestors are here with us, helping us. They want to help. All we need to do is to open the doors to them. Hit the right buttons, download it right here, so they get a chance to come into us and be with us. So thank you for listening. This is the second episode, and we're going to go on from here. I hope you have a very loving, wonderful, happy day.